Hey, Joe Gilder here from Home Studio Corner. I want to show you one example of how I would use the routing tool, the new routing tool in version 3 of Studio One. So here is, let me play this for you really quickly. Here is a bass track I recorded recently where the bass player was playing a P bass with flat wound pickups. I'm sorry, flat wound strings. So not a lot of, it's very, very round sounding, kind of a Motown sort of sound. And we ran it through a distressor pretty heavily, so it's got some attack. You can even see that in the waveform. But in the mix, we notice as we mix the song, it's getting lost quite a bit. It's got plenty of low end, but it's not cutting through. So real quickly, let me play the file for you, and then I'll show you one thing I would try on this. So not a lot of sustain, a lot of kind of front end, and it's just very round, right? And later on he goes further down. So by itself, it sounds like it's punchy and all that, but in the mix, it's just getting lost. It's just kind of a low end rumble. So a lot of times what you might do on this is try some compression, try some EQ, maybe try a distortion plugin to cause it to cut through a little bit. But if you want more control, I suggest trying out the splitter tool within the plugin routing in version 3 of Studio One. So I'm going to grab my favorite distortion, and it's super powerful. It's the red light distortion. I showed that in a previous video. If you haven't checked that out, check it out. But before I mess with it, I'm going to come in here and insert a splitter. So let me zoom in so you can see. I'm going to drag a splitter here at the beginning of the chain. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the red light distortion over here, and I'm going to leave this signal path kind of untouched. So here's where I might do my normal EQ and compressing of just the dry, regular bass signal, okay? But then over here, I'm going to do some things with distortion. Now, for the time being, let's just pretend like we're doing kind of just a parallel processing here. I want to run half the bass through the distortion, half the bass clean, okay, for the purposes of this example. So I'm going to mute the left side. Okay, so now we're just listening to the bass going through the distortion. Okay, so here is the plugin settings. We'll go back to the routing in a second. So let's just find a really groovy sound and just gritty bass sound. Okay, let's go to a harder tube. That's way over the top. It's perfect. Okay, so now we've got that. Let's go to the splitter, and we click on the splitter, come over here and unmute the other side. Now we can hear both together. So that didn't work very well, did it? Let's hear it before. Okay, we added a lot of volume. Let's bring that back down to level match a little bit. So we've introduced a lot of fuzz, but not a lot of, the low end's kind of gone even when we bring the mute back on. By the way, you can mess with mutes by just clicking over here on the line, turn them on and off. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take this red light distortion, bring the volume down maybe a smidge, and then we're going to EQ. Oops, I lost my plugins. Don't you hate it when that happens? I sure do. I'm going to EQ the distortion. So I don't need to EQ. I like the way the distortion sounds, but I need to remove a lot of low end, so I'm just EQing the distorted signal. So I can come over here, grab Pro EQ, stick it in here on this side, and now we're just EQing the compressed or the distorted signal. So if I open that up and mute the other side, I'm just listening to the distorted signal. So I don't need any low end here. Okay. Now that might actually work better to blend with the original. Bring the original back in. Okay. Now, the one thing that's not easy to do, and they may change this in a future version, I would imagine, is to adjust the balance between the two. Okay, we've got the high frequency, the low frequencies being rolled off after the distortion, so that's all cool, but we might want to just mess with the balance. And rather than opening this up and turning this up or down, it would be nice if we could do it here. One kind of hack to get around that is to just throw a mix tool plug-in in the chain, and then you can just, by clicking on it, you can adjust the gain over here. So you can turn it up or down by, you can turn it down 3 dB. And then you can click, oh, there it is. Yeah, click and drag here to adjust your gain. So this is a great way to kind of blend between the two. So we maintained all of the original sound of the bass. We've also added a distorted signal that's not muddying up the low end. It's just adding some upper mid-range. If we turn everything off, hang on. Let's go back to the plugins. Let's just turn the whole chain off by clicking over here. Now, am I saying that's a great sound for this mix? Hard to say because we're just listening in solo. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. You'd be surprised probably how many even cleaner sounding bass tones in a mix actually have a lot of distortion on them to allow them to cut through. But that's one example of where I would use that splitter tool to split the signal up creatively and do some different things to each one. Now again, you may be asking, why do that when you can just adjust the mix knob on a distortion plugin? Good question. The problem with that is you can't also EQ this distorted signal separately. Yes, it has a low frequency and a high frequency filter, but I like the way that distortion sounds with more lows in it, but I'd like to remove the lows after. But I only want to remove the lows from the distorted signal without having to route it to a new bus, and this allows me to do all of that on a single channel. Is it complicated? Yeah, it can be, and you can get lost here pretty easily, but it also opens you up to some new possibilities, which I think is worth exploring at least a little bit. Okay, that's it for me. My name is Joe Gilder from homestudiocorner.com/PreSonus. Head over there to check out more free Studio One videos from me. Thanks for watching.